مشاهدينا الاعزاء، اسعد الله اوقاتكم، طاب مساءكم. معكم ميسوم منصور من قناه كونار تي في لايف. وفي هذه الفقره من الحلقه الخاصه جدا للقدس، هنا القدس من كندا، ينضم الينا في هذه الفقره السياسيه الكنديه ضيوفنا الاعزاء من الممثلين السياسيين الكنديين. وستكون هذه الفقره طبعا باللغه الانجليزيه او الفرنسيه حسب راحه الضيوف. فهحاول انه بين فتره وفتره من كلام الضيوف انه نترجم لكم عشان تقدروا تواكبوا الاحداث، انما اعتقد انه قد لا يسعنا الوقت، ضيق الوقت انه نقوم بالترجمه كامله. فبتمنى انه يعني عم نخبركم انه هذه الفقره حتكون باللغه الانجليزيه. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in this special open episode today in solidarity of Jerusalem, Al-Quds, and Al-Aqsa Mosque, and all of the Palestinian people in their ongoing struggle since the creation of the occupation state. And thank you so very much for our guests tonight who are joining us. Mr. Alexandre Boulris, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Thank you. I will be introducing you after I add all of our esteemed guests tonight. Mr. Marwan Tabara, thank you very much for being with us tonight. And Ms. Debbie Hubbard from the Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East. I will begin slightly briefly to introduce you to our panels, to our viewers today. Mr. Alexandre Boulris is a representative MP who, on behalf of the opposition party, the New Democratic Party, the NDP, and he is an MP for the riding of Rosemont La Petite Patrie. He is also the Quebec lieutenant and ethics critic for the NDP as well. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. And Mr. Marwan Tabara, he is an independent MP representing the riding of Kitchener-South Hespeler in the House of Commons in Ottawa. Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Tabara.
Thank you very much. Merci.
I just want to make sure that I introduce each and every one of you properly, so I do apologize if I missed any of your credentials. And Debbie Hubbard from the Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East. Ms. Hubbard is a participant representative on behalf of CJP-ME and has also participated in the World Council of Churches in East Jerusalem as a human rights observer in 2014 for a period of 3 months, where she has some contribution to share with us regarding the Old City, Silwan, and Sheikh Jarrah as well, because there were some of the neighborhoods that she monitored during her presence there. So I will begin with you, Mr. Boulris, because I know your schedule is tight. And if you would allow me, before we start, we have a video that has been shared with us with great appreciation from the leader of the opposition party, the NDP, Mr. Jagmeet Singh. So we would like to run that briefly. If we could just start with that video before we begin the conversation.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Jagmeet Singh, leader of Canada's New Democratic Party. I want to wish you all a Ramadan Kareem and Eid Mubarak. I want to talk about what's going on in Sheikh Jarrah. My heart goes out to the people, and I believe very strongly that Canada and Justin Trudeau need to denounce the illegal occupation and the forced eviction of the people of Sheikh Jarrah. I also believe we need to denounce the violence going on and call for peace. I call on Justin Trudeau to support the upholding of international law and working towards a peaceful two-state resolution so people can live in peace and harmony and security.
So, Mr. Bourisse, first question that comes to mind as a Canadian and as a Canadian of Palestinian origin, naturally, would be why is it that up until today there's been constant international calls for applying, as Mr. Singh has mentioned, international law, yet not much concrete action has been done on the ground to actually enforce it, in your opinion?
No, not enough, and that's why at our last convention, we and the members of the NDP, we adopted a resolution asking to put some pressure on the state of Israel, because without it, nothing will change. So we ask for a boycott of the product coming from the illegal settlements that are real issue out there, the West Bank, and a real problem for the future, but also to put a stop on the arm exports on the between Canada and Israel state. And this is what Jagmeet said today, because the last events that are absolutely horrible, and another step in the denial of the human rights of Palestinians, especially in East Jerusalem and in Sheikh Jarrah, incited us, and we had a discussion at the NDP caucus to increase the pressure and to put some pressure on the Canadian government to play his role on the international stage, to make feel the Israeli state that you cannot continue like that, evicting people from their houses in East Jerusalem and humiliate them and discriminate them and let Jewish settlers attacking them on the street. So we decided to raise the volume a little bit today because of the last events in the last 3 days, and the number of people with Palestinians who have been attacked and killed and wounded. And I think every country in the world should do something like that.
Despite the constant calls and so on, the question remains: what is the obstacle that is standing in the way of this actually becoming reality, seeing that Canada is a country that stands on standards of liberties, freedoms, human rights, justice, equality to all, and all these beautiful humane concepts. Yet despite that, they're unable to enforce, or actually there's calls on the government to act, but why isn't the government, in your opinion, acting?
It's a really good question. I think you should ask this question to Mr. Trudeau himself. He probably has the answer. I'm not in his shoes, and I don't understand. I think it's an important issue regarding to human rights and also Canadian values, and also what the Liberal Party is saying most of the time. But I think that right now, Canada and other countries, we're still a G7 countries. We have economic ties, we have trade, we are selling arms, we have different relation with the state of Israel, so we can have some button we can push on to put some pressure on the Israeli authorities. And if we don't do it, and if France is not doing it and UK is not doing it, it's going to be problematic, because without any kind of pressure or sanctions, Israel state will say, I have a free ride. I can do whatever I want with the IDF and, the illegal military occupation of West Bank and Gaza, and letting the settlers take all and taking all the farms and the lands of Palestinians out there. We have a role and we have a responsibility as a democratic state, a state of law, to speak louder and to put some sanctions and pressure.
Excellent. That leads me to A question to Mr. Tabara. Mr. Tabara, how are you today?
Good, good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. As an MP, what do you think are the steps that should be brought to the government in order to like the call on action? What do you think it would take for this to actually happen? Is it a question of priorities for them, that this extreme violation of human rights and injustice that we're witnessing live on TV and social media? Why is the government so silent about it? And what can you as MPs do representing us in the parliament?
I think, you know, as MPs, we have to stand up for human rights across the world, and it has to be human rights that is equal across the board. We can't pick and choose which human rights we're going to stand up for and which human rights abuses will let continue and stay silent. I think this is this situation was, you know, in Sheikh Jarrah, what's happening. This is not something new that the Palestinians are facing. This has been ongoing for years and years. Illegal land under international law has been encroached on and stolen year over year. Just in 2016, for example, Peace Now, an Israeli organization, has said that in 2016, 200 settlements was up 250%. So you can see that this was in 2016, and now we're approaching what's happening in West Bank and East Jerusalem, and you know, people are protesting. Enough is enough, and they're protesting because the more land that is taken, it's going from one neighbor to another village to another town. To answer your question, I think we need to put, as Alexandra mentioned, put more pressure. The international community must say that Israel cannot operate with impunity and continue violations. Can you still hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you just fine.
Okay, perfect. Cannot continue with these violations and not have any repercussions and operate with impunity. So I think what governments like Canada and other countries need to force Israel's hand, and the United States is a big player in this. We need to ensure that you know, we're putting pressure on the United States to say that, you know, both sides need to come to an immediate discussion, immediate cease of tensions, and to negotiate peace. This cannot go on with impunity any longer.
A question comes to mind as a human being and not necessarily as an MP, interacting in this political climate at the parliament and so on, being part of the decision-making process. I wonder, how do the MPs view the question of Palestine today in the world where, you know, the apartheid came down in South Africa, and you know, it's a nation that had struggled for decades as well, and you know, today they are enjoying freedoms and liberties that they once only thought of as dreams. Why is it that the governments are they not feeling the struggle of the Palestinian people? Are they not reacting to you know, these extreme injustices in ways that push them to act? Does it have to be a question of economic interest or a weighing out of priorities, as I mentioned? Or is there no emotional or human motive at all that moves parliaments to act on applying, you know, what we stand for as a nation across the world, and stand up for injustice?
I'm not sure if you're asking that question to me or Alexandra.
To you and Alex, either one of you.
Okay, I'll be short. Maybe I'll continue. If we go back in the early 90s, we've seen you know, UN resolutions under Jean Chrétien. We voted mainly in favor of the UN resolutions, you know, with Palestine, with Palestinians. When around in 2006, when Stephen Harper and the Conservative government came into power, the pendulum swung way more in line with voting against the resolutions. Under the current Liberal government, there has been a little bit of, the needle has shifted a little bit, but not towards anywhere where it was back in the 90s under Chrétien. Your answer to, I'm not sure why. I mean, we have to stand up for human rights. I sat on the Human Rights Committee for over 5 years. We discussed human rights abuses all across the world in every region. And we put together suggestions to give to the government to put a press release out to denounce some of the human rights abuses across the world. However, for some reason, it comes on deaf ears when it comes to the Palestine-Israel conflict. And we need to, as Alexandra mentioned, we need to, raise our voices and make sure that this is front and center.
That's exactly why I asked that question as to why is it like this age-old question for as long as we've existed. All of us here, I think, the question of Palestine has been a question of extreme injustice, and up until today, the Palestinian people are suffering. And it saddens me as a Canadian in the first place that we're unable to exert some kind of change, being Canada being the force that it is. So that is the reason why I asked these questions. Going to you, Debbie. Thanks again for being on the show on such short notice. Debbie is joining us from BC, so it's a little bit earlier on in the day for her. Thank you so much. Debbie, you mentioned that you participated as a human rights observer as part of the World Council of Churches. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and what you witnessed on the ground, and what, if anything, comes out of the the reports that you give at the end of your mandate? Does anything change on the ground?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this conversation. So in 2014, I served in East Jerusalem on an international team of 5 people. And interesting, one of my teammates was from South Africa. So we had lots of conversation around the parallels between what the Palestinians were experiencing and what had happened in South Africa. One thing I have to say is our government has known the facts on the ground. We met with consulate people while I was there from the Ramallah office, and twice a year they get a full report. And the group that I served with had 7 teams in different parts of the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and we reported daily on the checkpoints, on the home demolitions, on the challenges for children trying to access school and education, and all the freedom of movement and access to resources that the Palestinian people were living under. So I know our government knew about it. And when I went back in 2017 for a conference and then to do some more observation in the northern West Bank, and I visited with some of my friends in Sheikh Jarrah and so on, and the old city, and the presence, the Israeli presence and the settler presence was even more pronounced. So it had just continued on and on. So anybody who goes and sees the day-to-day reality of a Palestinian, something as simple as going 10 minutes from Bethlehem to Jerusalem to the mosque or to a Christian church, it's unbelievable. It would take up to 90 minutes to go through the Ramallah checkpoints in some of the days that I observed, and it hasn't improved, and at any point the checkpoint would close. So I just think we try and imagine, I live an hour from Vernon, and if I lived in Palestine and was a Palestinian that didn't have access to Jerusalem, it could take me up to 2.5 hours to go an hour to Vernon, depending on the mood of the Israeli government and the defense forces to try and get access to the holy city or the old city. Yeah.
Did you witness any human rights violations personally, Debbie, out of curiosity?
Oh, constantly. I attended more home demolitions in the first 2 weeks that I was there than the team before me in the first 3 months, total 3 months. The day I arrived, I watched.
Could you tell the audience why would the demolitions take place? Why are the houses being demolished for Palestinian families? I'm assuming was what you meant.
So in East Jerusalem, in order to build, you have to have a permit. And I think it's like less than 2% of the permits get approved for Palestinians. And because they tend to build because they need, when their sons marry, they need to bring their families into a house. So they build a house, and supposedly without the permit, then the Israeli military will issue a demolition notice, sometimes only in Hebrew, sometimes not even anywhere near the house. They might post it on a lamp post 2 blocks away, and then the Palestinians wait until the demolition comes. And it often, the first demolition I went to was at 5:30 in the morning. The woman was home alone in the kitchen, making lunch for her husband to go to work, and he'd already left. The older son was going to take it, and she heard the tank coming down the back alley into her courtyard where there were 5 other houses, and her house was destroyed. I mean, literally, she had 5-10 minutes to remove her stuff, all because she didn't have a permit, which it's unbelievable. And the even worse thing is that the third demolition I attended was the family actually demolished their own house, because if they demolish their own house, they don't have to pay for the demolition. So not only is their home demolished, but they either have to demolish it themselves or pay for the demolition.
Such injustice.
Oh,
yeah. Alex, going to you, can you tell us, I know that you've had an experience in the Middle East. Can you tell us how that, how your involvement was, and was it a personal visit or in some official capacity, and what was it exactly?
It was 2 visits. So the first one was personal. It was in '99, and I had the opportunity to visit the Gaza Strip at that time on my own, and you know, to see the gates and the fact that the military are, you know, repressing people and forcing them to pass through certain doors and blocking them was a shock for a little guy from Quebec, and you know, I had increased my curiosity about what's going on there and the violation of human rights. And after that, you know, I was with Marwan in I think it's 3 years ago as a member of parliament in the Canadian delegation there in a visit to West Bank, when we could see and experience, you know, the daily frustration and discrimination and humiliations of Palestinians in the West Bank, something that is not making news every day, of course, at the CBC or CTV, but making life miserable or much more difficult. And what we are witnessing today is the result of all that, you know, repression and stealing of lands and homes. And I think that the last tentative to evict some families from East Jerusalem in this neighborhood, Sheikh Jarrah, was people just, it was not possible. And what we are witnessing is also the fact that the Israeli government is closing his eyes on what the, you know, ultra-nationalist settlers are doing on the ground to civilians in a lot of cities and towns and neighborhoods. And I think that we need to increase our voice as a democratic country. You know, I was thinking 2 minutes ago, you know, in the past, Canada has shown some leadership, you know, and I'm going to be fair, one conservative, one liberal. Brian Mulroney with South Africa. You know, he was ahead of the movement and he was putting some pressure. And Jean Chrétien, with when he refused to be in the Liberals, Jean Chrétien refused to get us into the mess of the war in Iraq. So why not today our leadership is not taking a strong position on human rights and the rights of the Palestinians to live in their own house, in their own land, and forcing Israel to go back to the negotiating table? Because if it's only the use of the force, Israel will always have the upper end. They are really strong. And but if the international community is putting some pressure, some sanctions, and they have to pay the price for their decisions, maybe they will calm down a little bit.
I mean, we all agree that occupation is the source of all evil. The fact that the occupation continues today is by itself. It's unacceptable that you know, there's a lot of status quo in the occupied territories, and that this is ongoing under extreme injustice. It leads me to the question of action. Perhaps, Marwan, I'll ask you that question. There's been several letters that have been petitions and so on that are being circulating, signing, demanding on the government to put pressure on Israel to stop the violence, to maintain or to ensure the preservation of the Palestinian human rights living in those areas and elsewhere in Palestine, to calm things down pretty much and continue on with the trying to find a solution to this problem. Do you think that there's any outcome that could significantly affect change based on these petitions, calling on Parliament and so on to take action? Do you think that concretely on the ground, such public pressure can make a difference?
Yes, I think so. I think if we have strong leadership, and we have organizations that are really putting more pressure on more politicians, more groups, that human rights groups that are continuously speak out right now, but lobby the government, lobby parties, lobby individual MPs, and tell them to speak out, tell them to start petitions. I think we can get more individuals to MPs to speak out about this. Discuss it in the Human Rights Committee. Bring it up. Have a committee meeting. Have witnesses testify. I think we can put more pressure on government officials to finally put some teeth to this and really, put some concrete measures so that we can see peace for this region.
So as Sabrina is asking here, why can't Canada stand clearly and firmly with the international laws when it comes to the Palestinian issue? We as Canadian Palestinian demands that our Canadian government stop tailing the U.S. in ignoring the Palestinian rights. So you're saying that there's not sufficient public pressure on the government by lack of lobbying or lack of organizations or some kind of lobby, basically, that would.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's just lobbying. No, I think Global Affairs Canada really has to reanalyze the way that they're seeing what's happening. They can't have the same old answer that we look for a two-state solution with Israel's our ally, and a two-state solution where both states live side by side with peace and justice. That's their standard line for every single inquiry that comes in. It needs to be much more demanding. It needs to be talking about the illegal settlements that needs to be halted as soon as possible. That is one of the main reasons for this ongoing conflict. If that comes to a halt, then peace negotiations can start. But when these destruction of homes and the illegal occupation continues, how can there be any kind of discussion of a peaceful resolution when clearly the state of Israel is saying that they don't want a two-state solution?
Okay, well, we have Debbie with us. She's from one of these organizations that are putting some pressure and lobbying. Debbie, could you tell us a little bit about some of the action that organizations such as the CJPME are doing, and what are some of the things that you see that have yielded some kind of change, and that perhaps is for everybody who's listening in today, can be an inspiration as to a step in the right direction for all of us to follow?
Yeah, thank you. It isn't, I think, from lack of trying. So the two key organizations that I'm most engaged with are, of course, CJPME and Independent Jewish Voices. And CJPME and Independent Jewish Voices, along with another national organization through the United Church, did a poll this summer. And it showed that in that polling, it was an ECOS poll, and it showed that Canadians want our government to oppose Israeli annexation and increase their contributions to the international community. And it was an unusual result that we didn't expect quite so strongly. But yeah, and so people can go to the CJPME or the IJV website and read that poll. Then the second action, which I think speaks sadly on how Canadians are viewing our government, is when Canada was applying to have a seat on the Security Council. from the grassroots up, there was a campaign appealing to the UN not to appoint Canada to the Security Council. And for me, as a Canadian born and raised in Canada, it's pretty sad that as a citizen, I'm appealing to the UN not to give my country a seat. But it's because of, I didn't trust. I thought the stronger voice in the Security Council would be Ireland or Norway. And so those are a couple of things. For me as well, CJPME has done lots of work around education. So right now we're doing a whole series of webinars on BDS because for the Palestinians, they've asked us, they've called out to us and they said they're into nonviolence. And it's the largest call of civic society in Palestine. And they're asking us to support BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And again, our government has said that BDS, because they're following the IHRA definition, is anti-Semitic. There's a motion passed in the House. And so we're doing educating, and we're going to push our government to support boycott, divestment, and sanctions as best we can. And I will say we are grateful for the NDP and their stand. And Jagmeet speaking out today. And I think we just have to keep progressing. The other issue that CJPME and a number of organizations have come into working on is what's happening with children. And Israel is the only country in the world that actually arrests and detains children in military courts and in the military system. And and every aspect, they're violating the Convention of the Child, International Convention on the Rights of the Child. So that's the other issue that CJPME and our local chapter here and other groups are highly involved in. And what we're learning is we have to come together on the issue. And so we will continue because Palestinians and Israelis working for equal rights and human rights deserve our support. And I will say they feel abandoned by the international community right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. What you mentioned about education and raising awareness and so on is a very important point. And there's a question here from one of our viewer. She's saying, from the guests who have visited Palestine in the past. And again, I will direct the question to you, Alex. She's saying, were you able to convey the reality of what is going on there into Canadian society, both personally and politically?
Oh yes, so we were able to write a report that we sent to Global Affairs and the Office of the Prime Minister. Marwan was there, and he's nodding. He remembers that. So it was something that we did politically with our colleagues, and we organize a conference or meeting also to talk about our experience. And after that, as a local MP, I also use social media and the way we have to communicate with our citizens to talk about the stories that we experience and we heard and we saw there directly on the land in the West Bank. But about education, and I'm sorry to put that on, but a lot of journalists and reporters in the media, not you, of course, but they need to know more about this conflict. When I watch French CBC or TVA, they are talking about, or there's a conflict between Israel and Palestine. There's a clash between two sides, and both sides are doing bad things. But no mention about the history, the illegal occupation, the settlers.
Or the imbalance of power. The extreme
imbalance of power. It's like it's supposed to be, two sides more or less equal who are fighting each other. We don't know why.
An occupying force and an occupied people.
Exactly. Yes. And, without this big fact, this information that is crucial to understand what's going on, you're completely missing the point. So we all have to increase the awareness of MPs, citizens, groups, but also some reporters.
Okay, that's great. I have a question for you, Marwan. Being an MP of Arab origin, is there any message you'd like to direct to the Canadian people of Arab origins? Do you see that there's enough implication or involvement in politics as far as voicing out their concerns as to what happens to that part of the world and being influential somehow in their electoral process, if anything, or in expressing their concerns to their MPs? Do you see enough of that? Is there any of it at all? Or Is there something to build on that you would like to send, perhaps as a message to these Arab Canadians?
Thank you very much, and that's an excellent question. I'll start with the good and what we can build on. I think in the last couple of years, maybe since last 10 years or so, you've seen a lot more organizations like CJPME really getting more individuals informed about this, and especially Canadians of Arab origins from Morocco to Iraq. Really more engaged in topics of what's happening, particularly in Palestine and Israel. But I think historically, when we've seen kind of immigrants immigrate to Canada or other countries around the world, they struggle first to get on their feet, to find jobs, and they're doing the best they can to provide for their family, get them great education. So a lot of their spare time is still kind of working around being an immigrant and learning the new culture that they're in. So historically speaking, there wasn't that kind of organization and that rally towards standing up to human rights, but we're seeing a lot more of that, and it's only growing year by year that I'm seeing. I think we can try to get the youth more involved, and we're seeing that. Definitely those that have immigrated from the Middle East that come here, they're a little bit more vocal, but we need to see some of the youth that have Arab origins that have been born in Canada, United States, and elsewhere, really start rallying, getting involved in organizations like CJPME, starting their own on campus, and really getting their word out. Because the more you have, the more you can email MPs, the more you can email ministers, institutions, the more we can shed light on this, and I think the more progression we can make.
Thank you, Marwan. We're almost out of time. As we approach the end, I would like to give you the floor for each and every one of you. We'll start with ladies first. If you can, is there any message or words you'd like to express to our viewers and or to Palestinian people in Palestine struggling to obtain their most basic rights in this struggle? I don't know if you have anything. Basically, the floor is yours. So go ahead, Debbie.
Well, I'd just like to say, first of all, thank you for the time and today. And I just would like both the Palestinians and our Canadian government to know that as Canadians, we're not giving up, that we believe that we have a history, and as we deal with our own colonial history here and our own semi-apartheid treatment of Indigenous people here, that we can take that and act like the Canada that I was born into and that I came back to and moved back to from the States to be part of. And right now, I'm not really proud of my government, but I'm going to do everything working to make my government be the country I think we can and were. Thanks.
That's beautifully said. Thank you very much. Alex?
Yeah, first to the Palestinian people and our Palestinian friends, you're not alone. You have allies. You have people working here in Quebec, in Canada, talking about your issues and defending you and defending your rights. And to Canadians, I would say, if we are serious being against colonialism, we have to take a stand and defend and protect Palestinians who are under a great threat and under very aggressive colonialism in West Bank, especially.
Thank you very much, Marwan.
Many states around the world has said, including the United Nations, has said that Israel must halt its settlements, which is clearly the biggest challenge to a peaceful resolution. I say that we need to ensure that we hold our politicians to account, our leadership to account. Settlements is one of many that is the biggest challenge to a peaceful resolution. To all Palestinians, to all Canadians that believe in human rights, we need to, raise our voices. We need to keep this issue front and center. We need to find a solution. It's 2020. This conflict and this occupation has raged over 70+ years. Keep speaking out, keep posting, and hopefully justice will prevail in the near future.
Thank you also very much for being with us tonight. I thank you sincerely on behalf of CANAR and on behalf of the Palestinian people. You guys keep up the great work. Thank you so much. مشاهدينا الأعزاء، ابقوا معنا في الفقرة القادمة. سيكون هناك لقاء مع الجمعيات العربية والفلسطينية في كندا. كانوا معنا ممثلين من السياسة الكندية مشكورين، السيد ألكسندر بولريس، السيد مروان طبارة، والسيدة دابي هابرد. شكرا جزيلا وكل عام وأنتم بألف خير. شكرا.